Again,
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you so much, Fred. Again, this is a special meeting of the Architectural Review Board. It's being held on GoTo video platform. Let me introduce the ARB members I have on screen tonight, and they will go about introducing themselves one by one when they do speak. First, I've got Marion Castell, Sherry Green, who is on call, Allison Hughes, who is on video but not being shown, Leslie Macaulay, Sean Brown, David Humphrey, and David Riley, who will also be taking notes. First on the agenda, we have ARB number 7, 2020. This is the Spring Grove Cemetery Association. It will be presented by Michael Murray. Michael, please introduce yourself, and Fred will put you to a presenter profile and do your thing. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Liz. My name is Michael Murray. On behalf of the Spring Grove Cemetery Association, our request tonight is for a columbarium. So I believe, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
It's fine. There's always a little pause here at the beginning as we get our programs up.
Sorry about that. Okay, I don't have anything electronically to present other than our application, which I think you have. The plan is there was one mausoleum on site right now. You have a picture of what we call the modified York columbarium, which is largely a light gray stone, which there's not much to it. It has a base to it. There will be a, in addition to the base, some surrounding stone as well to make it look nice. It's not very close to the road. The finished is a polished bar gray granite, as depicted in those photographs. It's a concrete pier foundation. There is a mausoleum section of the cemetery. The hope is that you would approve 4 of these. Although the plan now is to just put 1 up, and then over time there will probably be a need for the other 3. The plan is also to put 2 stone benches for each columbarium with related shrubbery and new lawn area to create a walkway within the columbarium site.
Repeat that last part again, Michael. You cut out for the last.
Sorry. The plan is also to landscape it properly with a new lawn area and a new walkway within that part of the cemetery.
Can you pull up what you're looking at on your drawings, Michael, and maybe even put it in front of your video and show, so we're on the same page and we know exactly what you're looking at what you're talking about?
Sure. That's what the columbarium will look like.
Concrete base, polished gray bar granite finish on top?
Correct. And then I don't know, it's somewhat set back from the road. I drove over there this afternoon, so it's not, I don't think it's a high visibility spot. I don't know, what kind of questions or concerns you might have for it.
Well, if you're okay with that, Michael, I'll open up the conversation. Is
Sure,
that okay?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm going to call on Marion Castell first. I'm going to call members one by one, the same order. When I call on you guys, can you just reintroduce your name and go ahead and ask questions or not? Marion, you first.
I'm Marion Castell, and my questions are talk about it's close to the road. Is it visible from the road in the sense of where you're going to see the columbariums when driving by in the car?
I think you will if you look. I don't think it's going to necessarily jump out at you, but it's pretty far back, maybe 100 yards. Maybe 100 yards from Hecker Ave is my guess.
And I had other questions about, are you going to have any evergreens or any landscaping to kind of soften up some of the edges of the concrete?
Oh, very much so on the landscaping. I
Well,
don't
I'm
know.
reading, they talk about tree protection notes. I don't see any details here of anything else.
Right, we don't have the details yet. I think evergreens make a lot of sense, but I might ask you for direction. I don't want to say it doesn't matter to us, but it doesn't matter. We want it to look nice, and evergreen certainly makes sense for a year-round presence.
I think something year round that doesn't overtake it though and grow over it. But your landscape person can tell you about that.
Absolutely.
Something to soften it, and then something for color at the other time of year, maybe. I don't know what's allowed at the cemetery on that point. And then, of course, I think would be interesting to see how that worked out, and the lighting also. Are you going to have any lighting at all? So is anything going to be lit at night, like the monument or anything?
No, that's not anticipated.
Okay, that's good. All right, that's fine. That's my initial questions. And I'd go for a more comfortable bench somewhere. I don't think people are going to want to sit on that concrete one too much to meditate.
You might be right.
Okay.
Thanks, Marion. That's a great point. Okay, next up, Michael, we do have a landscape architect on our board, but we'll get to her eventually down the list here. Next up, I've got Sherry Green and then Allison Hughes. Sherry?
Hi, I don't have any visuals, so I'm hesitant to make any comment, but I would agree with Marion's comments. I think the landscaping is probably important, as is a comfortable bench.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I appreciate it. Next up, I have Allison Hughes, then Leslie. Allison, you're still on mute. There you go.
I'm done, okay. No, my concerns have been covered.
All right, thank you, Allison.
No,
Next up, I've got Leslie McAlay and then Sean.
Hi there, my name is Leslie McCauley. I am the landscape architect that she was mentioning earlier. I agree with Marion. I do see your plant list and there aren't any evergreens included. And I think that it's going to be very prevalent from the street and the library. I did the Veterans Memorial just south of the site. And so I have a pretty good idea of what can be seen and what can't. There's a small row of cherries against the road, but it's not going to begin to hide or conceal what you've got. You could do, I don't know if you can see this, you can do a kind of a row of evergreens right here to protect it, and it would also soften the noise from the street for the people who are there.
Okay.
That's great, Leslie. That's it?
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.
Great, thanks. Next up, we have Sean Brown and then Dave Humphrey.
I don't have any comments.
Thanks, Sean. Dave Humphrey and then Dave Riley. Dave Humphrey, are you good? Are you passing? Dave, I've got you off mute, but I'm not hearing anything. I'm sorry. I think your connection's slow, Dave, but it looks like you're passing. Okay. All right. I didn't go to college just to understand that sign language. I picked up on it. All right, moving on. Dave Riley, please.
Sorry, yeah, I thought I was on mute. read
I think
no
I'm getting the delayed
comment.
news from Dave Humphrey overlay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, my only observation, and this probably is driven as much by the topography, is with that existing mausoleum, it seems that the arrangement of the 4 columbaria don't really work specifically off the axis, as you know, in terms of approach. I'm wondering if that was looked at in any way, or is there any desire to give it a little bit more formality? Because as it is now, it's trying to strive for some formality, but it's then kind of skewed as you go through. And it seems like for a contemplative place, having something that is balanced on the approach would maybe utilize the arrangement a little bit better. But if there's a specific reason for the way that the columbaria are positioned, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, the thought was, and thank you, the thought was that we're pretty limited with that that ledge, that huge rock is a real
Okay.
deterrent. And the other thing was the way the roads lay out, you know, if you have a service there, that would give, in theory, ample parking. So we were kind of limited, I think, of where we could go.
Okay, and it needs to have that essentially like a driveway up to the mausoleum in order to access it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, think of a funeral type of procession kind of a thing. It'll wind around.
Okay. And then in terms of the columbarium themselves, that I guess I don't know too much about mortuary design, but they're rather monolithic. I don't know if there's alternate designs that can, give it more of a, almost like a texture to the outside. The rock face on the base and the top, in some ways almost take away from the kind of the just sort of object aspect of the columbaria. Again, I'm assuming that these are probably prefabricated pieces. Is that correct?
They are, and I was able to look at all of the different options, and you would have been amazed at the color schemes. They were like, it was quite, wouldn't fit in a Darien or the Northeast for that matter, but this seemed to be the softest and fit within a New England type of town. I'm not sure where these other ones would go, but this was clearly the best of the bunch.
Okay. Yeah, I think once it's in place, I mean, I'm kind of looking at it sort of in an isolated sort of.
Yeah, and I think to Leslie's point on, the softening with the evergreens and stuff, I think it'll soften quite a bit.
Okay. And the paving underneath the columbaria, what is that material? You may have already touched on that, but I missed
It's
it.
in the, it's a concrete pier foundation. It's rather significant. I can show you kind of what it's going to look like. So the foundation, for lack of a better word, is rather significant.
Well, that's the foundation. I'm talking about the paving around it, the hardscape. It just says new walkway. I may have.
Oh yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet. Obviously, it's going to be in keeping with the columbarium itself, but we haven't mapped that out yet.
Okay. I don't know, maybe if Leslie has a thought on that as far as what would go well with that kind of softer gray as far as a horizontal surface, or if there's any sort of a border or some sort of a transitional aspect to when you get into the columbarium, maybe there's a change of material. I think those are all considerations when looking at the hardscape and how that kind of lends to sort of the processional quality of getting to it.
You're right.
So I'll just put in my notes that the hardscape paving is TBD,
Yes.
but will be complimentary. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, I was muted. Leslie, do you want to comment on that? Any ideas?
I was
Sorry.
thinking, I had one side question. Is the area irrigated? The Veterans Memorial is not.
It is not.
Okay. Do you plan on irrigating?
I don't think they were, but I can certainly ask, because I don't think there's anything else over there that is irrigated. I know they have a water source. They've got that pond and everything, but
Okay. Is someone good with the hose over there? Because you're gonna need water in there to keep those trees or the plantings. And how wide are the pathways that are going to each of the columbariums?
I'm sorry. I have that here, Leslie. Hold on. Five feet. As drawn right now.
You might want to think about making them a little wider so that two people can go side by side. I wouldn't do a side as David suggested, side pavers. It's a tripping hazard. But typically if you're having funeral services, people are side by side. So I would give it at least a 6 foot wide sidewalk. And you
That makes-
probably want it to be very maintenance free. So I would look into the concrete pavers. Yeah.
Good advice.
That's great, Leslie. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else that wants to make any additional comments?
I'd like to say something. The mausoleum that faces Hecker Avenue.
Marion,
I'm
introduce.
Marion Pastel, sorry. Now that is a big blank concrete wall that faces Hecker Avenue, correct? And it
Yes.
blocks, and then you'll see the big wall, and then you'll see little sort of circular things to the right or left as you're standing in front of it. Is there anything that you do to kind of relate the big square block or to relate to the little circles around it, or I'm into planning again or something, but it seems like that's kind of a big blockage thing for people thinking about going in there. Is it you trying to invite them in, or do you want to have that sort of as a stop? You want them to go around all the way around and enter the other way, right?
Correct.
And so where would you enter? Where's off of Hecker Avenue? Is there a pathway that
There
leads
is.
from the street? And I can't. So I have a very small addition here, so that's the way you get in. But looking at and I haven't been to look at it, I'm sorry to say, but I wonder about that big concrete mass there, a blank mass, whether some attention should be made to that at some point.
Well, it would certainly be as you enter from Hecker Avenue on the road and you come through it, the mausoleum would be a backdrop. And that's how you would enter. There's not a planned sidewalk or anything from Hecker Avenue to it. There's going to be a space there for tents, you have services in the rain kind of a thing. But there wasn't anything contemplated more than that right now.
Okay, would you be coming back to show us some of the landscaping and some of the other decisions about the walkway before
It sounds like
final?
we're trending in that direction.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's it. Michael, let me see if I can do a good job summarizing this up for you, all these different comments. It sounds like, in general, the board is supportive of what you're proposing with just some changes. So I think those can be, considering the times, those could be reviewed operationally. To kind of recap what those changes are, and anyone step in if I've missed anything. Rethinking the material of the stone benches, proposing a row of evergreens along the outer circle of the combine area to shield from site noise. Also giving thought to an irrigation plan to support any new plantings you have. And regarding the hardscape paving, considering a 6 foot wide versus 5 foot wide sidewalk, no side pavers, and possibly a low maintenance concrete material for the actual sidewalk paving. Does that sound good, Michael?
That's lines up with my notes as well.
So I think I'd give you a favorable report based on what I'm getting from the board here, the sense, but just with some small modifications. So if you want to send those through digitally, if Dave Keating gives me the thumbs up on that, I think that we could proceed that way and keep things moving.
Okay.
Great. All right, Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all for your time. Have a great night.
Okay.
Take care.
Moving on, we're going to go to ARB 04. This is 34 Olds King Highway South. We spoke about this last week. It had some revisions to, let me start again. We had some revisions to the architecture. The massing in windows seemed to be approved by the board at large, but we had some small detailing we wanted to have them rethink, as well as the south entrance to the south side of the building facing Old Kings Highway. And they should also be presenting a revised a new landscape plan. So with that in mind, I think Kate, our old ARB member who is no longer on the board, will be presenting. Kate, introduce yourself and go for it.
Hi, this is Kate Perez, and actually we have David Genovese on as well. Colin Grother from Binefield Architects, and Dennis Dale. We actually have Dennis Dale, a landscape architect, working with Towers Goldie, another landscape architect, who are both also paired on the Corbin project. So we have architect and landscape team here too to talk about the building facade material, which I know was a question from last month, and a bit more detail on the landscape. And Liz, as you mentioned, at the end here, we have some notes, and we can kind of walk through the idea of the south, or I guess it's the east, the idea of an entrance on the east on Old Kings Highway. So, thanks for your guidance in the last meeting, and we're sort of back with some of these refinements just to walk through those updates.
Kate, do you want me to pull the thing up?
Sure, that'd be perfect. Fred, do you have the presentation, or can we share the screen? Can David share the screen directly?
I think you've got it now, right?
Yep.
You should see it.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Kate, do you want to take the lead, or do you want me to do it? With your call.
You're welcome to run with it.
Okay. So thanks so much. This is a rendering that you saw during the last conversation about the project. Nothing has really changed with regard to the basic elevations. There was a discussion that we had over the material, and I've been kind of torturing my team a little bit in looking at the material that we wanted to go with on the side here. And these are some images of the proposed facade material that we like a lot for this building. We had thought about a different version of the same, a different style of the same cementitious material, but on reflecting on it a little bit longer, what I became uncomfortable with, in color, too similar to 36 Old Kings Highway South. The color was a darker greenish color. This is a grayer material that looks different in different sunlight situations. That's actually the same material that you're seeing in each of those 5 images, and Kate is actually holding it up on the top 2 against the 36 Old Kings Highway facade. So you can kind of see how it contrasts with what we installed at 36 Old Kings Highway last year. We like this material a lot. We think it looks different, more different than 36, and it'll kind of stand in nice contrast to that. There was some conversation around the idea of using a wood material to soften the facade further, but to be honest, I'm just really strongly against a wood material on a commercial building of this size. I don't like the look of it, and I've looked at a number of different examples with Bruce Beinfield and his team, and I'm not comfortable with the material. And this is a material that we've seen in a number of other applications that we just like a lot. And to be candid, this is a little bit of a passion. Well, they're all passion projects for us, but this one's a little especially so. It's actually going to be our office at Goldwater Properties. So I just want to be sure I really like going there every day, and I don't feel like we picked a material that everybody else wanted, but I hated. I just personally don't like the wood versions of things that we've seen. So that's the material. I know that Kate dropped it off and had it available to you all to see in person at Town Hall. I don't know if anyone got a chance or how many of you got a chance to do that, given these life circumstances we're in. But that's the material. I'm going to touch on a couple of things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dennis Dale from Dale Design to talk with you specifically about the landscape architecture. I just want to address I wanted to address the facade material, and then another question that had come up in the last meeting around the possibility of having two entries, one on Old Kings Highway South and one, at the side of the building facing the municipal parking lot. So this drawing actually kind of shows you the rough interior design of the offices. There's a stairwell. Given the size of the building, we only need to have one stairwell, and there is an elevator that we have to have. And while we're designing this building to be our office, we are also proposing for the possibility of someday, needing less space, just never knowing where we're headed in this world. I mean, how much today, even more so than the last time we talked, how much work from home there'll be and what the possibilities are of how much space we would actually need. This is the elevator. So you can see we've got kind of these private offices set up in a conference room. But what I wanted to show you, and we'll have Dennis come back to do landscape architecture, but what I wanted to show you was the impact of putting an entry on Old Kings Highway South. Hang on just a second, it's going kind of slow, I think, because of I don't know why it's going so slow, but it is going slow. This image should come up. Okay, this is an image showing what the entry or the public plaza would look like if we were to put an entry on the Old Kings Highway South side. And there are two dilemmas that doing that create. One is that the grade changes pretty significantly here, and Dennis can tell you exactly what the grade difference is between Old Kings Highway South and the first floor level, but we would have to have a 2-level ramp basically to meet the ADA compliance requirements if we were to put an entry here and a stair. So you'd have a stair and then this, 2-way ramp that would run basically across most of the front of the building to comply with the ADA requirements. At the back of the building, the building is basically, and when I say the back of the building, I mean the side of the building facing the parking lot, the municipal parking lot, which is the parking lot we think most people will use. The grade is basically at floor level. So we don't have to have a ramp like that here, which is the same condition as we have at 36 Old Kings Highway South. 36 Old Kings Highway South has entry from grade or at grade from the municipal parking lot. And there is actually an entry to the lower level where the dentist office is, which some of you may have been to, but it's got a staircase and it's not ADA compliant. So we couldn't build that today. So the grade is one thing that kind of ruins what we see as this great opportunity to create a really attractive public plaza. We'd really rather not have an ugly kind of 2-level ramp. And lastly, just to show you one other issue that this creates, 17 Old Kings Highway South, which we built in 2010 or so, does have 2 entries. It has 1 entry on Old Kings Highway South and 1 entry at the rear. And 17 Old Kings Highway South, let me just move this out of my way here so I can see it. I don't know if you can see this drawing, but 17 Old Kings Highway South, actually on this side is Old Kings Highway. On this side is the parking lot in the rear. That first floor is divided among 3 tenants right now, and then the second floor was 1 full tenant, now has been divided as well, and the elevator is here. So if we were to have 2 entries into the building, we would basically have to have a corridor down the center to give access from the Old Kings Highway South. You know, on the 34 floor plan looked at differently. This is Old Kings Highway South. Here's the ramp and the staircase. We'd have to have a hallway that would run through the building so that someone coming from Old Kings Highway South could get to the elevator, which is over here. And that just creates a total mess from a floor planning, a space planning point of view. And it would really kind of decimate the idea. Our thinking is functionally that, you know, this is either 1 tenant occupying both floors or 2 tenants each occupying 1 floor of the building with no need for that hallway down the middle. So I don't know if I'm being clear in how I'm explaining that, but it functionally just causes a lot of problems. And this property is a very strange property. I don't think we have a good site plan here. But if you look at the site plan for this property, which I believe we shared the last time, it's actually it's a very odd triangular property. And it only works, the development idea that we have here only works because of the fact that we own 36 Old Kings Highway South, and we're able to, you know, basically integrate them. And then in connection with the Corbin project, basically reconfigure the parking lot to add actually 12 parking spaces in connection with the reconfiguration. So there's a lot of moving parts here, which I don't think we really explained in the last meeting. And hopefully, you know, hopefully this makes it a little bit more clear of what the issues were there.
I'm going to
So,
jump in. I think you did a great job
with that,
explaining.
I can turn it over to
I
Dennis.
think you did a great job explaining it.
Yeah, and so with that, I can turn it over to Dennis, who could kind of walk you through some of the architectural details. Dennis is a key member of our Corbin team. Okay, have fun. I'll call you later. Sorry, my son is leaving the house here. I had to say goodbye. Dennis is a key member of our design team. He's with a group called Dale Design out of the Massachusetts area. And Dennis, Kate and I would credit with adding a lot of the real kind of texture to the Corbin project. He's working with us with Towers Goldie, which is a big firm based in New Haven. But Dennis is really an artisan whose insights and guidance we've really appreciated in the Corbin project. And to be blunt, we weren't really working with Dennis and Towers Goldie on 34 Old Kings Highway initially, but the more we got into it and the more we talked to Dennis about what we were thinking, you know, he started to sort of inspire us with how we might be able to tie it all together and create these beautiful public spaces. And one thing led to another, and here we are. So I'll turn it over to him. And then Dennis, I'll be your scribe. If you want me to turn the page, you just tell me when.
Okay, great. Yes, this was this public space is really unique. That's redundant, but the idea is that we started out with, is there a certain continuity between Corbin Drive and the work that's going on with the improvements along Corbin Drive, as well as what's happening at the corner Corbin, what we call Corbin Corner Park, and how that then blends into Old Kings Highway South. And we were really concerned about what is the public realm like, what is the streetscape like, how does it relate to that kind of pedestrian access along Old Kings Highway South, and looking at, you know, creating essentially a little West Pocket Park that is something that is of the street, but also related to the building. So as we, you know, looked at materials that we had at Old, you know, in the area actually on Old Kings Highway South, and looked at the materials that we're using on Corbin Drive, the brick. At the corner, we're looking at using a low stone wall and a granite posts with pin and feathering to give it some age. We realized that, you know, maybe there's something here where we can bring a kind of a historical bent to this this particular area, seeing that Old Kings Highway South used to be the old post road. We then decided that maybe there's a way to utilize a low stone wall to create a seat wall, and essentially a gentle entrance or ramp kind of off the sidewalk and into this public space. The idea is that this stone wall is almost reminiscent or echoing possibly an old foundation that was once there on Old Kings Highway South, where as you enter into the park, you cross a threshold of flush fieldstone and into a brick small park. The plantings that we were looking at, one of the reasons why we look closely at the whole streetscape itself, there are two European beech or purple beech that are right at the entrance to 36 Old Kings Highway. They're rather close together, and the thought was, why not utilize that, at least one of those trees, to create a better streetscape by pulling it a little bit farther to the north, having it engage with the new building, and you'll see that at the lower right there, and also provide a bit more of a street treescape that's on the street side. That also gives us a foil for entering into the park, and some shade on that corner. There's a transformer on the kind of lower left-hand side there, right there, that we have some screening evergreens around that. But the planting idea starts out seasonally. We have some Lenten rose or hellebores, early spring, that then kind of roll into Fothergilla, which is a native shrub, which also has some fragrance, kind of honey-scented flowers. Behind that, in the corner, left-hand corner, is a shadblow tree, rather early blooming. And then we've also utilized along the front seat wall itself some perennial grasses to give some color and movement to the edge there. There's also some catmint for summer color, daylilies that continue the bloom, kind of reblooming varieties, and some geranium, cranesbill geranium. Along the face of the building, we have a shock of color of the Hino crimson azaleas, and then Tony aster spills down the slope. The building actually sits about, as you saw earlier, it sits about 3.5 feet above the park itself. So what's nice about that is that for two reasons. One, handicap accessibility. You can come into the park off the sidewalk, through the park and back out onto the sidewalk and continue on into up the entrance to the west. But it also gives you a sense of being enclosed a little bit and it being a little bit separate from the building itself. So we're kind of playing this game where it's a public space, and what David had mentioned earlier, we had an entrance on this side, it would feel like it was purely an entrance for the building and that it would be less of a public space. So that, it's kind of the foil that we have that let's see. Yeah, the perspective sketch gives you sense. I don't know why suddenly I'm echoing, but yeah, that's what David has there. You can see how the break up the park significantly. That entrance.
David, can I ask you to go on mute? David.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Up.
All right, good deal.
No
Go ahead.
problem.
Jill, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You can go ahead. There was an echo there. I'm trying to hope that we got rid of, possibly.
Yeah, I was wondering why that was doing that. So, yeah, in this perspective sketch, you can see, there's a quick thumbnail sketch of what we're looking at. The idea of pulling the beech tree forwards, making it more useful for the streetscape, and creating, essentially using the same granite piers with the pin and feathering to add a bit of historic flavor to it. We're also drawing from some of the other buildings on Old Kings Highway in terms of stone walls and kind of the planting approach. The furniture that we're using is kind of fun. A kind of updated Adirondack chair and love seats. Lighting is a low bollard, as you can see in the there's a kind of a wooden bollard that's about 30 inches high. That's on the four corners, and yeah, you can see that in the lower right-hand corner there. And then the possible signage right now, we're still working on that, but the idea of a granite stone that has a like a Corten steel cutout, or possibly the name of the tenants below. You can see that in that image, the middle image there, some of the crane-spilled geranium and some of the attitude about the perennial grasses that we're looking at. So the other images on the lower left is, you'll see the Calamagrostis, the feathery grass there, and the Fothergilla in the fall, and the mix of daylilies that we're looking at, as well as the Cotoneaster in the upper left. So that's pretty much, I neglected to mention that we have a Okami cherry that kind of softens that corner as you come in off the driveway there. That's an early flowering, long blooming cherry tree that has great fall color. So
yeah, this is great.
That's about the front entrance. We could talk a little bit about the back, not the back, but the main entrance off of the parking lot, where we have a London plane tree as the main shade tree at the main entrance, and a very straightforward unit paver sidewalk right to the front door, and plantings that kind of soften the odd geometry that occurs between 36 and the parking lot there. So that's what we like about that walkway, is that once you enter the building, there's this great sense of the building opening up as it expands towards the east and the into the building itself. So
Dale, this is great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. You covered it very thoroughly. It's perfect. And David, by the way, thank you to you for giving us a great, thorough explanation of your thought process on how you guys were very, very thoughtful about the materials you selected for this building and the location and why you chose not to do an entrance. I thought you did a great explanation there for us. So that said, I have two small questions that I might address to you guys since I'm already speaking. One is about the signage. I see on your proposal you have something there for 34, number 34. I don't know if that was just kind of a rough idea or if that's an actual your presentation for this. And my second question is going to be what the material is between, on this actual slide you have pulled up, between 36 and 34 Old King Highway. There seems to be some sort of, I don't know if that's going to be treated like some sort of stone, stone filler or something.
It's just river rock, right, Dennis?
River rock. Okay.
yeah, it's kind of a service access area.
And then on the signage, Liz, we'll come back to you on building signage if we put tenant names on there or not. If it's just us, we might not put our name on the front of on Old Kings Highway South. We may just leave it with just the number. So we haven't figured that out yet. But we're not asking for a specific approval for building monument signage right now.
Okay, great. All right. If you guys are okay, I'd love to open it up then for questions. I'm gonna start with Marion Castell and then Sherry Green. Marion? Marion, you're on mute still.
Are you calling me or Marion?
I'm starting with Marion and then you, Sherry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I like the idea of the park and it trying to unite with Old Kings Highway and with the adjoining buildings. But then there'll be just the main drag in between 36 6 and 34 will just be the concrete of the parking lot, right? That
Between
whole
36
space.
and 34, you'd have no driveway. You would just have the river rock. So that would
No,
just
I'm
be
talking
like
about
a
the big
service-
wide space right between the edge of 38 and the edge of 34. That is,
Oh, that'd be, you mean
because
between 30
that's
and
the driveway,
34?
right? That's just the asphalt driveway.
I think you mean between 30 Old Kings Highway South and 34.
I'm
30
sorry.
being the 30 being
I'm
the
sorry,
glass building.
David, I'm sorry. I didn't get the large plan and it's really small. It is 30. My mistake.
No problem at all. Yes, that would just be a paved driveway. That's actually a town right of way.
Right, I thought so. I just want, we didn't deal with that side of the building. I just want to make sure that's the regular asphalt driveway. There are no changes there. And I do like the idea of the park. Maybe I'm confused, but can you get in? Is there any entrance? You don't have an entrance anymore on Old Kings Highway now. Really? Because of the entrance, the level differences are so great.
Correct.
Just basically have a park there, correct?
Correct.
I mean, you can't have that crazy ramp and all that stuff. I mean, that's just to show what the thinking is. So I'm wondering if there's a way of luring, if you want to lure people into the park and then to come into the front of the building, they have to walk on River Rock.
No, they would go along the driveway side of the building, which would have the pavers.
Well, there's also, the pavers on that right side, but right across the way from 30, it says native river stone drip. Oh, I see, that's the drip stone. So you just walk on the driveway to get up to the front, or is there any way that you can kind of link people from the park to the front?
Dennis,
There's a
this
sidewalk.
material right here is a sidewalk, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah,
right,
that's a sidewalk.
Yeah, so we have a drip edge and a small planting strip and then a full width
There's the
sidewalk. Yeah.
sidewalk. All right.
Mhm.
I don't have color. My ink ran out, so I didn't see the green, and so that makes it harder for me to read it on the plans that I have. Okay. All right, that was one of my thoughts. And presumably you have the lighting down in the park at the Ballards, but there wouldn't be any, and you have lightings up at the other end, and you wouldn't be going up there at night anyway, right? Walking.
Actually, there is, if you look on the drawing that we shared with you, let me pull it up again. Sorry, I keep opening it and closing it. We did show some gentle uplighting of this building.
On the building's edge? On the building's edge?
Yeah, in between the windows. Let me try to.
I think it's on page
Sorry,
7.
this is acting
I think
finicky.
it's on page 7.
Should show up in a second. But we have some gentle uplighting of the building that we proposed on the side, and actually the light, here we go. You can see just the small uplights that would light up here, and then from the front here. But the building, actually, Kate had some pictures. Kate, did we put those pictures in the presentation?
I don't have them in the
images at
present. I don't have them in the present.
We took some pictures just to see what the building actually looked like today with no lighting, just what's in the parking lot today. And it's actually pretty well lit.
Well, I'm trying to make it
well lit, so we don't want to.
Well, I'm sure it's well lit. I just want to make an inviting way.
Yeah, we agree.
Okay, those are my questions.
Thanks, Marion. Next up, Sherry Green and then Allison.
Hi, I think this is a wonderful presentation. I think it's a very exciting building. The two questions I had were about the signage and the lighting, and those have been addressed. So thank you very much. It looks wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Sherry.
Allison and then Leslie.
Okay, good. I have a question about the building material. Is it the same material that is used at 54 Wilton Avenue in Westport, or is it a different shade now?
I think it's pretty close. I'm not sure if it's the exact shade. Kate, is this a little lighter maybe than what's on 54 Wilton Road?
I think this is a little bit lighter, and this is also, it's a shot glass finish, so there's a little bit of texture to the surface, and a little bit of exposed grain. So it's not a flat color. There's a little bit of activity in the material, which we like. But side by side with 36, we thought that sort of light gray tone, a little bit of light gray tone, a little bit to the darker, a little bit more greenish,
Is it, okay, because I did drive by 54 Wilton Avenue because I said that was the same material that you were planning on using at that point last month. And I felt that color was a little on the cool side, very kind of purpley gray. I wasn't fond of it, to be honest with you. So I just wanted to know if this was the same material or you have changed from that choice.
Yeah, it's different, and we changed it again from where we were leaning toward last time we saw you, because we kind of concluded, we initially liked the texture of the one we showed you, but after we thought about it some more, we didn't think it stood out enough against 36 Old Kings Highway, and we wanted to increase the contrast.
The second question is the glass tinted? Is the glass you're using tinted or absolutely clear?
Colin, it's got a little tint to it, right?
I mean, I don't know that we've determined that. I mean, it can be whatever we want it to be. It'll be treated for energy efficiency and whatever privacy concerns you have, David.
Yeah. I mean, we want to get a lot of light, natural light into the space, so we don't want it to be dark.
Yeah.
But it's probably got a little tint to it, but not much. And it's not like the medical building next door where you need privacy in those exam
Wouldn't
rooms.
appear tinted at all.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Thanks, Allison. Hey guys, I'm gonna just, a few more reminders here. If you're not talking, please go on mute. There seems to be an echo on questions, even if the question is being addressed to you. If you guys could still go on mute, I'm so sorry to say that, but the echo makes it difficult to follow along. And one other thing, when I do call you, make sure you always introduce yourself before speaking, so we're all clear on who is actually speaking. All right, so next up is Leslie and then Sean. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Leslie McCauley. Great presentation. Thank you. I just had one question about the concrete paving. Was wondering, you had one photo of the red brick. Was wondering if you were going to keep in with the model sidewalk of Darien.
Sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. That's a good question. I'm not sure what's on. I know we're doing the model block down Corbin Drive, but I don't think, Dennis, do you know, or Kate, do you know if the model block, like the granite, the brick, and the concrete follows down Old Kings Highway South? I don't think that it does.
It's not in our plan right now.
Bob Maslin's shaking his head no. So he works down there. So I don't think it does. So it would be I think it would be inconsistent, because then 34 would be concrete. Then we'd change to concrete and brick. Yeah, I think it's just concrete along Old Kings Highway South. And I think it's a concrete curb. I don't think it's a granite curb on Old Kings Highway South either. But it does beg the question, what do you do? Where do we make that transition? And it's a good question. I guess it would be natural to make the transition from the driveway of 36, which will become the driveway to the Tibbetts building, and then follow it from there. Do you follow me? In other words, let me go back to if you don't mind. In other words, to follow the model block maybe from here and around, because if you did it here, it breaks. Although I guess we could, in theory, we could do it here and start it from this driveway in and then go across. but then it won't be consistent with what's in front of 30 Old Kings Highway South.
Could you do a nod to the model sidewalk within the courtyard of your public park?
Yeah, I
As
think so.
point
Dennis,
towards- To the model sidewalk.
Dennis, what do you think? I think you kind of do with the granite post. You know, in a way, you've got the granite post and, you know, the pavers in the courtyard, in the little park.
So yeah, you could carry that that entry on the far right-hand side of the park material out to the sidewalk. Have that embrace the edge of the sidewalk. But those sidewalks are only, I mean, the present sidewalks are only 4 feet, 6 inches wide.
Dennis, I'm having a super hard time hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the idea of carrying
Technology.
to the driveway edge, is that the idea?
Dennis, we don't have you. I mean, sorry, Dale, we don't have you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's pretty
Okay.
broken.
Is that any better?
That's a little better.
Okay. I'll lean in. So the thought was that the access along the driveway would be the model paver, the same type of sidewalk that we have along Corbin Drive.
Dennis, it's really your connection is horrific. We're having a hard time understanding you at all.
Dave, are you kind of following what he's saying about where the
I
model?
wish I was, but to be honest, I'm not. I'm getting like about every third or fourth word.
Kate,
Can you translate, Kate?
I'm not sure. I think he might be saying, you know, the Corbin Drive. So on Corbin Drive, we are following the model block in front of Building K. We have,
Down
you know,
here,
the,
right?
the brick edge, the trees, the planters. I think he may be saying we can take some cues from the jointing and concrete sidewalks on Corbin Drive and use those on the sidewalks, you know, wrapping next to the drive, you know, sort of top to bottom from the park up to the entrance. Dennis, did I paraphrase?
Yes, that sounds correct.
Okay.
The issue to be candid is that these are all different property owners. And so while we're part of all the partnerships, we're not in control of all of it. So, you know, I think we could agree to just redo the concrete sidewalk here and make this uniform and crisp. But I don't think if we start going down the road of redoing all of this, it's going to be a slippery slope. And then all of a sudden, you know, I can't say we're going to do all of this in the granite and then, you know, then from 30 Old Kings Highway South, it continues as concrete and without the granite or the brick. So I think we could commit to doing this in concrete to match, you know, the sidewalk, you know, the model block sidewalk. And then we could weave some brick into I think we already have woven some brick into the public plaza as a nod to the model block program.
That sounds
Dennis, if you have a better phone to call in from, that would be fantastic, but I might be too late.
All right, I'm gonna shoot it back to Leslie. Leslie, any final thoughts there? Or do we move on?
what I was hoping for. I was hoping that there might be some kind of cue that if this is a kind of public park, that it's related to the downtown core, that you're invited in. It's not a whole different set of materials, and maybe it's private and maybe I'm not allowed in. But if it resembles things that you saw on Post Road, then it's a little more inviting.
Yeah, no, I totally get the idea, and that is the intent, Leslie. So I think, you know, let us kind of think about that and come up with some tweaks, you know, as we get through it. But that's definitely the intent. And from our point of view, not having the entry to the building there makes it seem even more a part of the public realm than a private space.
That's great, Leslie. Wonderful
Thank you,
observation.
Jamie.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dave and Dale and team. All right, next up, we've got Sean and then Humphrey.
Hey, David, can you put the drawings back up on the screen and go to
Sean?
page 5?
You guys, again, make sure you introduce yourself when you're speaking. So,
Yeah, this is Sean Brown.
beautiful.
Hang on, Sean.
Yeah, that's the picture.
Oh, sorry. That one, that's
No,
3.
yeah, the site plan.
Oh, sorry. This one?
So, yeah, so in your floor plan, you have the elevator top left, staircase top right. If you were to split the floors into 2 tenants, you would put the entrance to the first floor across the span just below the elevator and just below the staircase. Is that correct?
If we were to split it into a 2-tenant building, the way we look at this, it's probably 1 floor per building. These are like 2,500-foot floor plates.
Correct.
So
no, but I mean,
yeah.
if you had to get to the second floor, you'd have to have a vestibule.
Yeah, this would be the vestibule right here, and there'd be a lobby right here.
Good. Okay. So then, can you go to? So that would be your floor. If you take that mind, I need to ask Dave Keating a question. Can you go to slide number 7? No, I'm sorry, 9. 9.
Yep.
Dave Keating, if he's able to by code to put one entrance in the building, why does he need, if he put a second entrance in, why would he need an ADA ramp on the Old Kings Highway side?
I can answer that. Our understanding, and Dave can, compare and contrast if he has a different view, but what we understand now, the ADA enforcement is getting stricter and stricter and stricter. And what we understand is that you've got to really now provide equal access to every aspect of a building. So if depending upon interpretation, and it's not black and white, there is an interpretation of ADA that would say that building occupants would have different access to that public plaza, if you didn't have ADA access to it. And that's the reason for which we concluded, and the building code consultant we asked, that we would need an ADA entrance at that site. 17 Old Kings Highway South, when we did that, we were not required to put an ADA entrance at the front on Old Kings Highway South. So there is a 3 or 4 step, or there's 2 sets of steps, I think, that lead up to that door. But I think they've gotten a lot tougher and more kind of strict in the enforcement of ADA. And that was the opinion that we got from our code consultant.
Okay, because I was going to say, if you did not require the ramp, then the front door would be a real option.
Yeah. No. If we didn't need to do it, would we put a step there? Maybe. But I the more we thought about it too, the more like putting a step there does make it seem more like it's part of the building, not a public space. This to us makes it feel much more like a gift to the public. The reason we put the door on the front of Old Kings Highway South, to be candid, was because we know that a lot of people that work in that building come from the train, and most likely they're walking down Center Street from the train station into that entry. Whereas for this building, we think that the walkers to the building are much more likely, if they're coming from the train, are going to be coming through the parking lot, through the Center Street lot, or they're going to be going and walking over to, the amenities, the restaurants, and so on of downtown. But the code consultant that we work with, Bruce Spiewak, his take was that equal access has become much more a focus, and that would cause issues, or could cause issues. You can't predict it, and we wouldn't want to find out after the fact that we had a problem.
Okay, that answers my questions.
All right, thanks, Sean. Dave Keating, I didn't know, are you good? You didn't need to say?
Yeah, this is Dave Keating. I don't have any input on the handicapped access requirements. It's just not a zoning regulation or requirement. But I do have to remind everybody, each time before you speak, you need to identify yourself.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. All right, next up, we got Humphrey and then Riley.
Hey, David Humphrey. Can you hear me this time a little better?
Yep, you're great. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, great presentation. Just a couple questions. I like the shot blast finish on the fiber cement board better than the ribbon texture that was in your hard copy presentation. That reminded me of a split face concrete block a little bit, which for me wouldn't be the greatest look. I do wonder, it sounds like you've seen this in a building nearby. I just wondering whether you happen to have a photo of that. Would just be good to kind of picture it on a larger scale, see how kind of monolithic it looks. And then also, if you have seen it, what's the gap? I see that you're indicating a half-inch gap. You know, that obviously has an impact on how the facade reads, you know, how, you know, wide or narrow that gap is. Obviously, you know, want it to be wide enough to be able to read the individual panels, but not too wide that it becomes too potentially busy. Assuming, you know, this is a rain screen cladding behind the panels, you know, whatever it is, just dark finish on the exterior wall.
Colin, if you want to comment on that, I can try to find an image for Mr. Humphrey about the image of Wilton Road. But if you want to just comment on the gap and the joints and the treatment, that'd be great.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
and I'll add one more to that. Because this is a rain screen cladding application, I assume you're going to need a coping at the top, which isn't necessarily represented in the rendering, and unless it's something that's kind of hidden. So you could kind of comment on a couple of those, just some of the details of the rain screen.
Yeah, so I would say that you're correct. I think we feel that the half-inch with the dark background is fairly appropriate.
Identify yourself each and every time you speak. Thank you.
Sorry, my first time. Colin Groth here, Binefield Architecture, part of the Old Kings Highway Baywater team. So yeah, we felt that the half-inch was appropriate based on the other buildings that we've seen, and what we've seen in the trim that's available to provide that detail, if that's an option. And also, as a rain screen application, it's a decent enough gap to allow the ventilation, and you'll see a little bit of the blackout material of whether it's the waterproofing or the blackened exterior insulation back there if they go that route. But we feel it's enough to get a decent gap, but not have it be too large. And the panels are a much more rectangular than they are square, and I think they're roughly 1 foot by, I want to say in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 feet, depending on how expansive the facade is. You know, in between the windows, it's not as big a space. So we did almost a running bond there, where it's a full panel and then a split panel up in the joint, and we tried to follow that vocabulary throughout and really be thoughtful as to where we were putting the joints and not have it be overly haphazard. So we really tried to organize the thought process behind it and have it be a composition, as opposed to you know, just putting up clapboard siding and letting the joints fall kind of random, as it were. So there was some intent behind it.
And will there be a joint at the corner as well, or it will be a corner kind of piece without a joint?
I think at the moment we're looking at a butt joint of some sort, where they come together. But if that's important, we can look at that
just
a little bit harder.
And then the coping at the parapet walls?
Yeah, the coping, Bruce tends to like things clean, so if we can hide it behind the rain screen, we'll likely go that route. But at worst, it's going to be like a 2-inch band on the top, like a ATAS clip-on aluminum coping to cover that. But we have done them before where it's just concealed behind the rain screen.
Got it. Okay. So if you wanted to, the rendering could be accurate as far as
Yeah.
it being hidden.
Correct.
Okay. And then one last comment. The notes had mentioned a wood top rail on the railing. Any thought as to what type of wood that would be?
Probably a hardwood with a veneer on it so that it would stand up to the weather, or I guess it could be a tropical, like a teak or something like that, that again will be rot resistant and hold up.
Okay. And David, I think you had pulled up a photo of that building in, was it Wilton?
Dave, you're on mute.
I don't want to get in trouble because I violated the rule many times. David Genovese from Baywater. Yeah, that's an image of 54 Wilton Road in Westport. I'm sorry, that's not the best picture, but I just pulled it up on Google. And that was an example that we directed people to take a look at if they could. It sounds like a few commissioners were able to get by there. But this was built last year, or about 18 months ago.
Okay.
It's right on the water in Westport by Bartaco.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, thanks. That's helpful.
Thanks, Humphrey. All right, Dave Riley.
Dave Riley speaking. Yeah, I think Dave Humphrey covered quite a few of what I was thinking in terms of coping and the material. I think my remaining question on that is the lighting scheme that's shown on the exterior. I'm a little concerned about it. Mainly is, where do you actually place the lights in I'm getting an echo now. Genovese, you're on. Okay, thank you. And looking at the plan, like along the entry driveway, it's quite a narrow strip there. I don't know how you're going excuse me, how you're going to fit the uplights in that narrow band and have them be effective. Also, in looking at the plan on the parking lot north entry, again, where are those lights going to be positioned? The depiction of the north side has these just two, shots of light going up. I don't think it really complements the building. I can see the logic behind it. I think illuminating the outside in a decorative way would be nice. I just don't know if that's the real solution that would accomplish that. So,
Colin or Dennis could articulate, the means by which, we would intend to light this. I would say quite candidly, I don't care that much about illuminating the building. I am kind of indifferent. I'd rather have the building kind of sit quietly on the landscape down there. So this is not something I feel very strongly about, but they could articulate, the means by which we would set this up. But to be candid, if this is our office, I think it's like 50-50. We're going to even turn the lights on. But Dennis or Colin, do you want to articulate like the way in which this would actually get installed? I think it's a pretty low, it's a very low profile fixture as I understood it, that would just be, surface mounted in the ground.
Yeah, the thought process was just in this maybe just as before we got Dennis involved and they turned up the landscape to 11 as it were, but we felt like we needed to present some sort of a cohesive lighting scheme for the building, and we had these vertical elements as we were developing the facade, and it seemed to make sense to do a narrow angle pin spot or wall washer, and those can be installed fairly close to the wall and really just graze and focus the beam upward and provide some sort of architectural interest at night. But as David said, it's not, it's a concept and it's probably not something that we're married to.
It's definitely not high on our list of, David Genovese here, it's not high on our list of priorities. you know, as far as I'm aware, none of the other buildings in that area are uplit. We have a little bit of lighting on the signage of 17 Old Kings Highway South. I think we might actually have a couple of lights on the building. But I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I mean, if you all had concerns around this and you told us you didn't like it, you don't want to do it, and you want to like let us build the building and then put something out in the field just to kind of see how it looks when we're done, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. Actually, Dave Riley speaking again. I guess my thought is, yeah, maybe the way I see this building is, you know, with the way the glass is set in with the facade material, it's almost like an internal illumination at night to make those those surfaces of glass sort of glow, whether it's like a linear accent, just illuminating the windows from the interior. I think in my mind would give a lot more form to the use of the lighting at night, and it would not emphasize the facade or have these conical lights that may or may not be all completely symmetrical along the driveway, which, you know, is, you know, if they're BK fixtures, they're great fixtures, but, you know, you got to really dial those in, and that can be done, but over time they'll shift and light levels will change, and, you know, I just don't think the intended effect will last, or maybe not be all that is cracked up to be. My thought is that, you know, the entry and an internal approach to making it more of like a lantern would give it a little bit more effect, and even using that in a kind of more restrictive approach would complement the building a little bit more.
Now David Genovese here, you raise a good point around, you know, fixtures moving over time and falling out of sync, and that would drive me bananas. So I think maybe we ditch the lights, we scrap the lights for now and build it and see how it looks, and then we can experiment either from the inside or the outside, and, you know, talk to you at a future date about that. That's really not an important point to us.
Okay, thank you.
I think your point's well taken, so thank you for that.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you.
All right, Liz Geiger here. Thanks, guys. We're going to wrap this up. That was a really thoughtful presentation, Dave, Kate, Colin, Dennis. We really appreciate it. It seems like the board overall is just really pleased with what you guys put together here. Favorable report coming from us. The only thing I think that is left to kind of discuss was, you know, you guys were going to take some additional cues, look into the
Auto block.
Thanks. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, taking some cues from the rest of Corbin Drive about some different sidewalk schemes and what you're gonna do there. If that's something you guys could send our way digitally, again, overall favorable report, and maybe we could continue that discussion a little less formally over digital. I know you, Dave, you guys are great about keeping us in the loop, and Kate. Yeah. Let us know where you end up with that. And if there is additional lighting schemes discussions, I think you can represent that when you do signage presentation.
Fine. Yeah, that's totally fine. I got that actually would be the right time to present it. David Genovese again here. So yeah, we can come back and visit on monument signage and any building lighting, you know, at a future date.
Great. All right. Yeah, Liz Geiger, David.
Thanks for all your feedback and guidance. We appreciate it.
All right, you did a great job here, David. Thank you so much, and everyone else.
Thank you.
All right, it's Elizabeth Geiger here again, Chairman. Moving on, our final agenda item for the day. We've got 30 minutes to wrap this up. So it's ARB number 10. It's 1897 Post Road LLC at 1897 Post Road. Speaking tonight, I believe we've got both of the Vaquero men here. John presenting. If whoever's speaking would like to step up and introduce yourself. And again, I'd like to ask everyone to go on mute if you are not speaking, even if you're getting addressed a question. Or Bob, please take it. Thanks.
My turn. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Maslin. I am representing, as soon as I can figure this thing out, the applicant. I have a PowerPoint that I'm trying, oh, there it goes. I'm not sure if my screen is up or not, but
Your screen is up and your PowerPoint is up. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is 1897 Post Road. With me tonight are John Vaccaro and Joe Vaccaro, the principals of the owner, LLC. Jim and James Scatino are the architects. And Sarah Ungamak McCool is here. I see her somewhere on the video. All I see is my own screen now, so I really can't see who's where. But what I'd like to do is run through the slide show, slide by slide, and whoever is the relevant person to talk about the material on the slide, I'll just introduce them and we'll go from there. You think that'll work?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Stop. Me too.
So this is just the cover sheet to the architectural plans. I begin as I usually do, with sort of a neighborhood tour. The site is on the northwest corner of Dickinson and the Post Road. It's across Dickinson Road from the Norotan Firehouse. The entire site is in the NB zone, the neighborhood business zone. And the building has been, and it's just slightly under a half acre in size. This has been an existing bank branch and more recently a tile store, one-story commercial building. Over on the left side of the building, as you see, is a, let me just see if I can get my pointer over here, the canopy over the drive-in window and drive-up ATM. Circulation has been through a one-way driveway in that makes an S-turn from Dickinson into the parking lot, and then circulation in a counterclockwise direction and exiting onto the Post Road. To the
here, you use your mouse. We can see your mouse moving on your screen.
That's my point. I'm kind of going along here. Okay, over to the west is the Flaherty Plumbing Building and whatever else is in that building. Residential property to the north. Directly across the street is, I believe it's St. Luke's, and over to the bottom of the screen is the intersection of Rings End Road. These are street views, obviously across the Post Road, looking at the building, and we're going around toward Dickinson to look at the right side or the east side of the building. Here's this kind of S-turn driveway in to the site. And the next picture is just a picture along the rear. And I wanted you to see this because this is pretty dense screening that exists today. It's pretty dense and pretty high. And the idea is to enhance that screening as part of this project. The elevations are here. We have perspectives, but maybe now's a good idea for one of the, or a good time for one of the architects to take over and talk about these slides. And as you want to switch from slide to slide, just let me know and I'll flip it. Jim or James?
Sure. James Scatino Architects here. My father Jim is also on the line, so hopefully he can jump in whenever he wants and he remembers to announce himself, his name. Bob, you're on like a presentation view or something. Can you make it go full screen?
Oh, I'll try.
And then maybe you could just go to the kind of the front rendering and with the existing building.
Did that take care of it?
Yeah, that's the full screen now.
Okay. Okay, which one do you want? Which one do you want me to go to?
I think it's 2 more slides, the front rendering with the existing building, kind of the before after slide. Yeah, that's good. Just briefly, like Bob said, we have this existing building here, and it's approximately 50 foot by 60 foot. And we're proposing taking off the roof and basically rebuilding it. We're keeping the foundation and the existing exterior walls. And then we're also adding about a 20-foot by 60-foot addition to the east side. Most of the parking is along the north and the west sides of the property. So we located the addition on the east side. And one of the things we were sensitive to was, it's the corner lot, and we wanted to kind of soften that corner, lower the roof line, and we came up with the kind of octagon shape for that portion that sticks out, so it's subordinate to kind of the main roof. The other thing we were trying to do, neighborhood business, we wanted to kind of lower the roof as much as we can. We didn't want to like max out that height limit. So we set back the dormers and tried to make it more 2.5 story feel like the rest of the neighborhood. Let's see. Also, I guess just quickly about the materials, I could run through. There's the existing brick exterior walls. Obviously, we're taking down the drive-through teller and the teller window, and so there's going to be some patching, but we're planning to paint the existing brick, basically whitewash it, and then we're putting in these storefront windows. Basically, the whole building is white, and then we kind of have this gray theme, the pebble gray windows, storefronts, the gray roof, standing seam roof. Maybe go to the next slide, Bob. This is just gives you, I guess you could kind of cycle through them just slowly, Bob, but just to give you an overview. I don't think these views are new for you guys. They weren't in the application. You could, yeah. So on that, those are the two residential entrances. And that's back to that main view. There's more about materials later. I guess, Bob, if you want to keep going with the present, see what other slides are next. I don't want to take up all the time. We can come back.
All right, Bob Maslin. This slide that's up here now is a computer generated perspective, but against the backdrop of the Norotan Firehouse building and the screening in the back in this row of screening along the western boundary. The next slide is your materials. So, James, you want to talk about the materials?
Sure. Obviously, we got the existing brick that's going to be painted, and then kind of the middle section, call it, we wanted to do kind of a more heavy siding. So we're looking at, James Hardy makes an artisan lineup that's kind of very heavy, 3/4 inch shiplap that has a nice shadow line. And we're proposing the square channel. It's like a 1x10 for the main section and the gable ends. And then up in the dormers, it's a little smaller areas. We have the V groove, which is a 1x8. And then the window frames throughout are pebble gray. I think we had noted in the narrative a different color, gunmetal color. But that was a little darker, and just upon thinking about it since then, we lightened it up a little bit. And so the pebble gray for the windows, the standing seam roof, it's an aluminum pre-finished material with the 1.5 inch standing seam, and it's a dove gray color, kind of matches the windows and the roof kind of match. And then the gutters and leaders will just be white. They'll just blend in with the trim. So that's kind of the materials.
Hey guys, Liz Geyer here. This is great. I mean, you guys can keep going. I mean, I can open up to questions if you guys want to do that. That might actually.
We got a couple more. Liz, it's Bob Maslin. We have a couple more things to cover: landscaping and the lighting.
It'll be quick.
Okay, we could do these real quick, and then we can go to the questions.
That's great. I'm not trying to rush you guys. Sorry, I'm just trying to just give you guys an opportunity if you want to open it up already. It's great. Continue.
Got it. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about your landscape plan?
Sarah, you're on mute still.
You're on mute. Okay. Am I on?
Yes. You're good.
I am Sarah Ungamak McCool of Ungamak McCool Landscape in Darien. What I did is I put on the back entryway off of Dickinson, I put in 2 tilia, which are trees that grow 50 feet tall. On the front right corner at the intersection of the Post Road, I put 3 cherries, Okami cherries. I wanted to give some privacy up to the 2nd floor, the residential area, but something that people can, with traffic, can see through, though I did set back the trees back from the road. Over on the left front corner, I did a cherry tree that has more bulk, that's about 35 feet tall. I wanted to kind of cool off that area because from the Post Road, you can see some pavement. The back left corner, I put 3 evergreen trees, arborvitae, green giant, that put some height. On the very back north property there, line there, I put Ilex Schwalbe, and I didn't have much space there. I only had 4.5 feet. So I had to put something a little on the narrow side there. There are some trees that appear to be possibly on the neighbor's property. I'm not sure. They do need some work. They have an insect infestation, which I'm not sure can be treated. In the very front, I put 2 matching beds that are lined in boxwood and candy tuft with perennials inside. We wanted to repeat the same idea that were done at 1950 and 1958 Post Road. And I kept it relatively clean. On the right side with the side entrance coming opposite the fire station, I just did a ground cover, some Andromeda and holly, and some fragrant planting for the entryway off the back driveway area, parking area there. I think that's it. I do have some grasses in beds to give it a nice flow texture, and I think that's it. John Vaccaro, Bob, could you skip forward a little bit and show the perennial garden at 1950 right there? Yep. Because we want to show the lights that we're going to put on the building as well, but we were going to try to repeat this sort of perennial garden that we have at 1950 and 1958 on the front of the building on the Post Road side.
Okay.
That's great. Sorry, Bob. Do you want to hop in? Are you right?
I was just going to hop in and go to lighting, and this is pretty straightforward. This on the screen now is the lighting plan from the engineering site plans. There are up in here, this upper right-hand corner, I have a close-up of it on the next slide, but these are interior parking lot light poles, fixtures on poles, one here, one in the back corner of the parking lot and one up at the entrance off Dickinson. All of these perimeter numbers are all zeros. This is a schematic of the light pole and fixture inside the parking lot. And if we go to the next slide, oops, this is the schematic. My mouse is very sensitive here, I apologize. This is the schematic of the wall lighting on the building, and it matches, as John said, the fixtures at 1950 and 1958. You can see here the fixtures across the front of these portions of 1950. Same for 1958. Here, here, and here, and then I have a close-up so you get a better look at it in place at these properties. And these are up a block up and across the street. And this is a fairly new building that John and his company put up a few years ago. So that brings us to the end of our slides. So it's time for questions. And if you want me to bring up a slide, let me know, and that's easy for me to do here.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, guys. That was great. Liz Geiger here. All right, I'm going to open it up, starting with Marion Castell and then Sherry Green. Guys, remember to all introduce yourselves every time you speak and go on mute when you're not.
Marion Castell. I think the building looks excellent, and I thought the landscaping was well thought out and beautiful as well. And you covered the lighting. I think you've covered everything beautifully. Go to the next one.
Thanks, Marion. Sherry?
Hi, Sherry Green speaking. I was not able to see the slide, so I'm not going to comment on that. I think the building looks beautiful. I have a question about the tenants. Will these be more service-oriented or retail or food? How do you anticipate these spaces being utilized?
This is John Baccaro. We don't have any specific tenants in mind. We'd like to try to keep, something in, that's in keeping with the area. It's, as you know, every major church is within a half a block to 2 blocks away. It's about 5
right, yes.
around. So we're very sensitive to that when we built the first building, and we'll be sensitive here. What we kind of know a few things we don't want. We really don't want another gym. There's plenty of athletic, gyms in town, and we have a couple of them in our buildings. It's just there's too many. We don't think we want food. We don't think the property supports food easily. We have food in the neighborhood between Roost and Mama Carmela's as well as Papa Joe's. So it'd be tough to kind of think about food. There also Freights is there too. So I don't really think it'd be food. So if we could get something that is orientated towards children's programs, that would be interesting. Like there's art classes and there's different classes that are now being taught outside the school that things that they don't teach in school anymore, like home ec. And there's a new tenant where Puritan was, and that's what they're doing. They're teaching kids how to sew and knit and do things, that they don't teach in school anymore. So if we could do something along those lines, since there's quite a few schools in the neighborhood, including, Hindley, as well as there's a lot of preschools as well. So we don't have a tenant in mind, but these are just some top of brain thoughts.
All right, thank you. How many spaces are there for businesses?
It's 3,600 square feet. It could be one tenant. It could be two. I don't think it can be three. I think three would be too tight.
Okay.
It's about our second building that we built was 1958, which is one closest to St. John's Church. That's
right.
About 3,300 square feet of retail. So it's closer to that size footprint. it's bigger, but it's closer to that. 1950 is actually 4,300 and change square feet on the ground floor, so that's a bigger footprint.
Okay.
That's where Danny Cycles is, and Bruce and Julius.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
We got Allison and Leslie. Allison? Allison, you're still on mute. I'm sorry.
I think I'm unmuted now, correct? This is Allison Hughes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My one question is on the second floor, on the second floor, on the interior, what is the where the triple window is?
That's what we did is we have 3 one-bedroom apartments and 2 two-bedroom apartments. We're looking to basically, we're going to have one affordable unit that'll be a one-bedroom in the building, because when you put in 5 units, you have an inclusionary set of rules. Bob can talk more about it, but there's an inclusionary set of rules, so we have to put in one affordable, which we intend on doing. The units themselves, the 3 one-bedrooms, 2 of them are more like an enlarged studio. In the city, they would be considered a big one-bedroom. Out here, they'd be considered a large studio with being a one-bedroom. And then there's a one-bedroom on the upper floor, which is you could call it an attic apartment, whatever. That's a one-bedroom, but it's a very large one-bedroom. It's more like a loft. And then on the second floor, there's 2 two-bedroom apartments.
So where would this triple window occur on the interior?
I apologize, I didn't answer your question. That's a one-bedroom. It's a small one-bedroom. It's about 650 square feet or thereabouts.
Allison Hughes again, and would that be living in the living area or in the kitchen? I mean, where in the apartment would that window be?
I'm quite sure. I'll have the architects jump in, but
Yeah,
that's a bedroom.
James Scatino here. Allison, were you saying on the second floor, the triple window in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah, that's John. That one's actually that's a 2-bedroom unit, and the 2 doubles, the two singles on either side are in bedrooms, and in the middle there is kind of the main living dining space, and kitchen's kind of towards the back. So it's the main living space of that unit.
Oh, geez.
My one slight concern, Allison Hughes again, is in window treatments there and how that might affect your overall design. I think it looks great as it is.
This is John Vaccaro again. What we did in the first 2 buildings is we put in all the window treatments. It's just a standard thing that we do, because otherwise every window could look like it's decorated differently and you end up with a big hodgepodge on your hands. So what we did is we put in the perforated shade type look, and it's depending on what room it's in, it'll either let in 3% light or 1% light. If it's in like a living room, it might let in 3% light. If it's in a bedroom, it lets in 1%. But they're all, if you look at 1950, 1958, you'll notice that all the windows kind of look about the same because we put the window treatments in.
Good. That's good. Great idea.
Thanks, guys. Leslie and then Sean.
Yeah, hi, Leslie McCauley. I had a question about this slide. It looks like you've got a line of green giant arborvitaes going along the parking lot, and I'm a little concerned that the car grills are going to burn them out, but I don't see them on plan. Was that an addition for in AutoCAD?
This is James Scatino again. Yeah, this was just us architects doing a schematic background there. Sarah hadn't done her plan when this was done. So, but Sarah's plan overrides that, what Sarah has over it.
Okay, great, thank you. And I just had one other request to Sarah, whose plan looks great. I was hoping that we could request the Tilia. Could you take us to the planting plan? There's one prunus on the post road, correct, on the lower left-hand side. Are we able to make that another Tilia cordata to match the two at the top right of the other entrance?
Yes, I could. Sarah McCool. Yes, I could do that. It's just the bulk of the shape. I wanted a bigger tree there. That's fine. I can switch that.
Great. To have the 3 Tilias at the entrances and exits.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Leslie. Sean, and then Humphrey.
This is Sean Brown. While you were presenting a very good and very nice building, my only comment is in 1950, you have the street address on a piece of glass over the double doors on Roost. In this building, although we're not really talking about signage yet, I just want to make the comment that we make sure we get the Post Road number sign on the building so that it can be seen from Post Road. That's my only comment.
Okay. John Baccar, we know we need to do that.
All right, thanks, Guy. Thanks, Sean. Dave, Humphrey, and then Riley.
David Humphrey here. As others have said, really nice presentation. The quality of your rendering makes this easier, so appreciate that. Appreciate the material selections. One comment, I think I heard you correctly, that you're attempting to keep as much of the existing brick as possible. I just wanted to ask whether you feel confident that you'll be able to match the finish with the new brick, because there's going to be a lot of patching and rework. Obviously, you're going to paint or whitewash, but just want to check whether you've already explored matching whitewashing or painting existing brick with whatever new brick you use.
Yeah, this is
Jim.
James.
Jim, go on, James. You want to take
No.
it? Go on.
Yeah,
No,
James Scatino. We have a good consultant we use who has been able to, for us in the past, match existing brick, and it's a commercially available. He can even get the color pretty close to what's there. So I think we're gonna be okay to match that brick.
Okay, and assume you'll test that out to make sure before you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Jim Scatino, architect. As James said, we just did it on our other job and made it a couple of control samples, and it matched perfectly. So we have a lot of confidence in that.
Beautiful. Great. Thanks.
Good eye, Humphrey. All right, Riley.
Dave Riley speaking here. Going to the facade on the, well, all the way around on the Post Road side, though, would be a good view if we could pull that up. I'm wondering with the trim around the windows, the casing, you're using these pilasters and a number of decorative elements. It seems like the windows are somewhat flat, and if there'd be any consideration to incorporating a little bit more trim, like at the head, excuse me, at the head, or like maybe more of a sill. It just seems like it's rather flat, especially with the shiplap. And if, again, I'm just an observation about what might be consistent in the area, whether a crown device on those windows and maybe just the windows in that are over the straight storefront. Because at the tower, my thought is that using the shiplap, continuing the shiplap with the pilasters on the tower, it seems a little busy. It almost seems to me like more of a paneled system at the second floor at the tower would kind of set that off from the rest of the facade and give that a little bit more of its own kind of language going from the base all the way up. It just seems like there's a little bit more articulation that I think would make the whole facade sing a little bit more and be a little bit more contextual, particularly because you're using trim devices at the eaves and at the corners. It seems like using them more in the field would be complementary. That's my comments.
Well, thank you. Those are good comments. This is James Scatino again. As far as the storefronts go, we actually thought at one point about doing all trim, you know, but one of the things with this project, we wanted to make it a little different than across the street. So we kind of thought it would be good to have this masonry base and treat it a little differently. But one point that you make, you know, maybe when we're developing the final details, we can add a little 2¼ inch, you know, brick mold just to beef up a little bit more of that gray, pebble gray color. So you see a little bit more of it.
Dave Riley jumping in again. Actually, I don't have an issue with the brick base. I'm talking more about the windows over the base, the ones that are in the shiplap.
Yeah.
Those could use a little bit more trim work. The storefront, at least in my opinion, I don't have any exception to that.
It's Jim again, Jim Scatino. Yeah, I think as James was starting to say that on our construction drawings, we're certainly going to be proposing a beefier sill on those double hungs. And perhaps even we could even consider beefing up the casing a little bit more. I think right now it's 5¼ by 4. But I think the tower, I think mainly on the flat facade, we might consider beefing up the sills and the casing, the heads a little bit more. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I think we could certainly do that.
It's John Vaccaro. One of the things that, you know, we looked at this and we went through several iterations, as you would expect we would. And one of the concerns we had is that because we have the tower, we didn't want to create it to look even bigger than that. And the other thing is, for instance, across the street, the two buildings have shutters. And we thought this would not be a good look on this particular building. And the other thing, and then it kind of looks a little bit too much like the buildings across the street. So we didn't know with that projection of the tower, if we do anything more than that, were we going to create too much, you know, make it look a little too busy. So we tried to make it look a little bit more, I'll say farm style is the only thing I can think to describe it. Farmhouse style, I guess is what I'm saying. So we use a smaller shingle on the dormers.
Dave Riley here again. Yeah, I think that, you know, that choice is appropriate. It seems like if you're making that decision on the dormer to make a change in the size of material, that at an element such as the tower, there would be kind of some similar consideration, not necessarily size of the shiplap or changing that, but it just, again, to me, there's just a certain amount of flatness that I think needs a little bit more articulation. And again, it's just my comment. It's, you know, advisory, so take it for what it is. But I think overall it's a very nice, handsome building. Liz, you're muted.
Thank you guys, sorry. Elizabeth Geyer here, jumping back in. Dave Riley, my comment there is, I think that's a really great observation. I think Joe, John, and James and Jim, you guys seem to be really diligent about looking into these details and seeing if they axe it or not. I think we'll leave it to you guys to decide if you need to do a little beefier trim there and if that will detract from the tower feature or complement it further in the rest of the building. So we'll kind of leave that to you. But unless there are any further comments from the board, I think this seems like a great presentation. Everyone looks pleased with it and you're getting a favorable report here. But again, if you do have another version of this that where you do beef up that trim a little, I think we'd be interested in seeing it, maybe a digital copy sent through David Keating in the interim. Does that sound good, gentlemen?
Yeah, sounds good to us, and we'll take a look at it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's great. Well, Sarah, great presentation as well. I also want to add that to the Vaquero team, you guys, I think it's a really nice job you guys are doing, kind of setting up a neighborhood feel here. You're bringing back elements from your adjacent buildings at 1950 and 1958 Post Road, but you're also not mirroring it exactly to where they fight each other. I think you guys are doing a really great job creating a new, like, third, fourth neighborhood in Darien here. So I give you guys kudos for doing that.
Liz, can I just mention something? Bob Maslin. I take it that's a yes.
Yes, Bob, please. Always.
That's Bob Maslin again. In case anybody's wondering, it looks like this already has model block on it. Here's the light. Here's brick along the sidewalk. And that's sort of already there. So we have the landscaping that's going to be very similar to the landscaping in the front of 1950 and 1958. I guess it ties both ends of the block together nicely. And I just want to mention, this is kind of a new thing for me, doing one of these meetings. I hope the PowerPoint was easy to see and all of that. It's never as good as being there in person, but I guess, what do they used to say, the next best thing? So thank you all for your thoughts and comments, and we look forward to getting your letter.
Thank you, Bob. You did a great job. We really appreciate you guys did. You guys are pros. It seemed like you've been at this a long time. So thank you.
Once or twice.
It's John. Thank you all for your support. Actually, the real creator of this whole neighborhood was David Keating. He was the one who said we should do the whole block 4 or 5 years ago.
I love that, Liz Geyer. I love that. All right, guys, we're gonna let you go. Thank you again, and we're gonna move on our final item on the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll get you guys the letter.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, Abby, if someone could make a motion to, if everyone's reviewed the minutes, if someone could make a motion to approve the minutes.
Sean will make a motion to approve.
Great, can I have somebody second that, please?
Second it.
Thank you. I heard Sherry Green there to second
Yes,
the motion.
yes.
All right, and since this is a special meeting of the Architectural Review Board, there will be no other business. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 9:01 p.m. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.